everyone. Welcome to Studio Sunday. We hope you've had a good week. We've been busy working on the Art Nouveau portfolio, and I think you're going to love it. Terry has really put his heart and soul into these drawings, and it really shows. Honey, do you want to give people a peek at what you're working on?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking that I would make that part of the art lesson too, to show how I'm drawing Art Nouveau. It's such a different style from normal. So I was thinking maybe we'd take a look at it.
Okay.
So I'll show you one, and then we'll look at the others in the art lesson. But this is Francine, and there's a theme going on of the moon. So, very elaborate style.
And that's just penciled.
This is just penciled, and of course it'll be inked and a lot of detail. And
this is a set of 6 signed and numbered black and white prints on acid-free archival paper in an acid-free portfolio.
Easy for you to say.
And we're going to be printing those here in Texas so that Terry can go sign the prints instead of having the printer ship them here. Terry signs them and then ships them back to the printer. That saves us about 2 weeks worth of time. So these are going to get out pretty quick. These should be out mid to late June. And they're limited to 600 sets. That doesn't sound like very many, but that's 3,600 signatures for Terry. So we're limiting it to 600. And we should have pre-orders up by the end of the week on that. So
good, because I've been asked about that online.
So follow Terry on social media, and he'll announce when they're going to be up. Let's see. Other housekeeping news. 5 Years number 9 is in the stores. Yay. And 5 Years number 10 will be in comic shops on June 24th. And we'll have the final trade available in July. So things are starting to move a little better with Diamond and the comic shops, which makes us all very happy.
Yes, finally.
So anything else you want to add to that?
Well, in addition to that second trade, the last trade, I've also been working on the omnibus, putting the omnibus together for the entire 5-year series. And as soon as I finish these Art Nouveau prints, I will work on the How to Draw book, where we're going to do an expanded edition with more material and really update it. I think we've gotten a lot of ideas just from these videos doing art lessons. So it's been good to hear your feedback and what you're interested in terms of art lessons. So I'll try to put that in the new book, and there'll be a new expanded version of a book we've had.
And it's going to be a lay flat binding on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, in trades, sometimes you open them up and they're made so they want to close. It'd be nice to have an art book that will lay flat, so you can, of course, use it as a real textbook. Yeah, it's a little feature, but it means a lot when you're using the book.
Okay, it's time for the scorching hot seat. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay. From Damien, this is an interesting question. Do you like magazine-sized comics or European album-sized comics? If there were no marketplace restrictions, what would be your ideal page size for publishing comics?
My ideal page size is more like A4. I really don't like the vertical size that we use for American comics. It's super vertical, isn't it? And it doesn't fit, you know, online formatting, of course. You end up having to do tiers. And I prefer a more square. You know, the European books are really kind of based off of, you know, even a little bit wider than this. A4 is a little wider. That's just what I grew up with. You know, I liked Tintin's layout better than Spider-Man's layout. So.
What would be your preference?
The European.
You like that better?
Yeah. Yeah.
And would you draw a bigger format that would shrink down?
Yes. And you know what? The very first, my first version of the first comic book that I did, Strangers in Paradise #1, I drew it to more of a square format. And the reason for that was because some of the indie cartoonists that I admired worked in that format. The guys who were at Fantagraphics, Robert Crumb. So that was the format I preferred. And when I got picked up for a comic book, I had to redraw it and reformat it to go more vertical. That was a pain. that was a lesson learned.
Okay, now for Patricia, for Strangers in Paradise, there were some pages that were all text. Others had photos, and some were lyrics. Could Terry elaborate on why and how he decided to include these different ways to tell the story?
I was hoping to emulate what creative people tend to do with their notebooks, their idea notebooks. You'll see it's very common for people that are interested in poetry or art or music. They'll carry around black notebooks, and inside the notebook they will put in all their ideas. It will be a diary, it could be the sketches from the park, it could be photos that mean something to them, any kind of little bits of inspiration. So those little books become like memory books and notebooks. It's really a tool for creative people. When I was doing Strangers in Paradise, I thought instead of just keeping this on one track, I'm just going to and hammer at one idea. I'm going to put all my ideas in one book. So it was the prose, the poetry, the music, the story of Francine and Cachu. There were side stories. There was, you knew what kind of music they listened to, what books they read in high school that was popular. I just kind of fleshed it all out, you know. And I think it kind of, in my mind, it made the world more relatable, their world more relatable. They weren't necessarily, you just assume they may be listening to the same music we are, but they also had their own people they listened to that we don't have. I thought that was fun.
Like,
Griffin Silver.
yeah. Because I remember at the time you got a lot of mail about where can I get a Griffin Silver album, which I thought was a great compliment that you had fleshed that character out so much they thought it was a real person.
Yeah. Sorry about that. But trust me, his music was wonderful. So yeah, that's just part of making up a make-believe world. You want it to be as realistic as possible to entertain the mind. So
why did you stop doing that?
Because the tone of that particular that era in Strangers in Paradise, it just kind of suited it because there was a lot of dream wistfulness and longing in that section of story where people, when you're younger, you have all these fantasy ideas. You know, you read Emily Bronte or whatever. You're open to these things. But as it got more serious later on, then it's more about getting through the day, and it's more about, you know, you come more down to earth, and the story gets more gritty and more on track. And then after that, I was doing the horror story and things like that, and I just kind of tried to be real good with as a storyteller and stay on and not get diverted. In Strangers, I was just kind of like roaming.
Well, yes, you were. And I remember one time you had put like 8 pages of prose in one 19-page comic, and I lost my mind and said, "This is not a comic book anymore." And you said, "You're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. This is my story." And
Harlan
Ellison called. That just happened to call that day when we were in the middle of this. And Terry asked him, and Harlan Ellison said, "What?
That's not a comic book.
Listen to your wife."
Listen to your wife.
So
There's a limit.
I gave a high five to Harlan Ellison on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I think you can go too far
Yes.
that direction as well.
Yeah, you end up with something people don't want to read. If it looks self-indulgent, they're out. So there's a balance between what you think is oh so clever and what somebody else finds just simply tedious waste of time. So you have to be careful.
Pretty harsh.
Yeah, it is harsh. But the criticism that you get back, you may think, oh, look, I just emptied my heart onto the page, and you put it out there, and people go, they don't respond the way you wish they would, and it's a hard lesson. So you better be sure about what you're putting on the page if you're going to publish it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lesson learned.
Yeah, lesson learned.
Okay. Anything else you want to add?
No, I was thinking about, like I said in the art lesson today, that I would go over some of these Art Nouveau drawings that I've been doing and show you how I'm constructing Art Nouveau, because it's so different from the comic book. And it's different from just sketching say do a con sketch, you know, it's just so different. So I thought it might be interesting to, if you've not been exposed to Art Nouveau much, here's an introduction and here's how I'm doing it.
Okay. Okay, well then, we hope everyone has a wonderful Memorial Day, and please remember all of the people who sacrificed their lives in the wars so that we can live freely in this country. Also, even though it's the official start of summer, remember to wear your mask and social distance. It's the only way to ensure that the health and safety of your friends and family. Keep those masks on and keep social distancing. We don't want a recurrence of COVID-19 if we can help it.
Wise words.
Okay, see you guys next week. And Terry, you're on to your drawing.
Here, meet me here. Okay, guys, when we talk about Art Nouveau, Alphonse Mucha is the king. Art Nouveau was an art movement that happened in the late 19th century for the turn of the century. And as you can see, it reflected the dress of the time. And it was very dreamy, flowery. There was kind of, just like a lot of the arts of the time, you know, the poetry and the writing, a lot of it was romantic. And I mean that in the sense of the arts, romantic art, where flowers and designs and just going for pretty. It didn't have to be realistic. It was just worshiping the beauty of women, people, the arts, nature, and just kind of tying it all in together. So it even went into furniture design and all that. So this is something for you to explore if you haven't already been exposed to it. This is one of Alphonse Mucha's books. And there are many, many out there. I was fortunate enough to be a part of a recent exhibit of Alphonse Mucha stuff, and me along with some other comic book artists as well. In Japan, it's actually making a world tour. And what they were exhibiting was modern artists who were influenced by Alphonse Mucha, and they were using the art that I had made for these Strangers in Paradise covers. 51, 52, 53. And it was a joy to do these. And I just kind of thought it suited the relationship and everything at the time. I had already done something earlier. And then I continued to do sketches with Art Nouveau. And I think there's one of Francine in here as well. Let's see. Yeah, where you can see where I did that, of Kachu and Francine. It's kind of just like celebrating an old art style. It's like making something Art Deco or modern art, or trying to do like Picasso or something. I don't know. It's just it's if you started painting flowers and you like the Impressionist, so you paint the Impressionist style. Okay, so it was time to do these. Put that away. It was time to do some art prints, and now that I finished the series, I have time to draw like this. So I went through the process of doing some sketches first, trying to come up with ideas. And these are my rejects because they were too down to earth. They were too practical. I came up with these design where I was going to do spring, summer, fall, winter, and I was going to base them all around a garden gate. So I went to the trouble to draw a garden gate. Carefully, elaborately designed it, and I thought, well, this will be the background for all my drawings. And then I did the first drawing, and it was, taken from this Kachu as harvesting flowers or berries or something. So I drew this, and it was ultimately Robyn and I decided that's not romantic enough. I mean, it's a nice picture, and I'm going to finish it, but it's not Art Nouveau enough. So that was a reject. So I took all these things and got rid of them and started trying to draw more romantic, just like dreamy, unrealistic flowers and stems coming up and crossing over and just layer upon layer. And then I got a little closer and closer to it with just Francine leaning on, this is going to be a chair with 2 moon globes and then a moon behind her. And I thought, okay, well now I've got a motif, a story to work with, or I can put the astrological signs back there. And I had to do a matching one for Kachu, of course. So something like this would be her for the sun, and I would put sun motifs back there. So you see how I'm kind of like, it took me a while to transition from down-to-earth storytelling drawing to get back into the mode of these dreamy, unrealistic, here's one that I didn't even finish, but just, you know, the dreamy romantic stuff. And then the last one I did before I started drawing the real stuff was this one of Francine in a snow garden. And to me, it looks like a Japanese snow garden. This is very Japanese, the way the snow is designed on these branches. I even gave her a parasol. I don't know why she has one in the snow. And then a snowbird. This is not romantic enough. I mean, it's romantic, but the clothing is not. The clothing looks more like Lord of the Rings rather than 1900. So, I mean, that's how much work was put into it just to try to transition from, hey, we're telling the story of 5 years to now we're drawing 1901. So, here's what I've come up with. This is the sun drawing for Kachu, and I'm sorry that the camera format won't get it all. And you can tell I've left out a lot of details that are going to be inked in. But basically it's Kachu in front of a sun design, and I've incorporated everything from history I can think of. This is Art Nouveau, it's ancient Egyptian, it's every Ra sun god thing you can think of all in there. Greek columns. So maybe it's just a hybrid mess. But by the time that I get in there and finish inking out all the details on the vines are going to be very complex and interloping there. And that's one of the things, interloping, that sounds criminal. That's one of the things that you do with Art Nouveau is just layer upon layer so that when you're drawing vines like this, I will end up spending hours just inking and drawing this stuff in layers, where it comes almost like a fibrous cellular, where the vines take over the planet and the ground. There's just some sort of beauty to it. And then you go back in and you add the leaves. It's just very tedious work. It's like making jewelry that has very fine details on it and a lot of repetitive patterns. So I'm going to go in and do all that, and these, of course, are flowers that I'll come in and flesh out. So when you see something like this, for me, it's an indicator. Here's where I put a white rose. And then I will go in with inking, and I won't ink this fast. I'm just penciling. But that's what that little section looks like. And then there'll be vines all around it. And on the border, there's usually complex borders, and this will be full of a leaf pattern, suggesting harvest, fields in the sun that yield their crops, and we live off that, and it's an ecosystem. We're all one with the planet, that kind of thing, see? And that'll go all the way up and around. For some reason, a lot of Art Nouveau, the women in Art Nouveau have a very difficult time finding clothing. So they have to use these big drapes that tend to just fall all over the floor. It's just a real mess, and no telling what their kind of food particles they're picking up down there. They don't care. They're happy. They're one with the earth. So I think a little bit of peekaboo is part of the romance of combining nature, naturalism, unabashed, embracing it all as one. It's not about society and how rich you are and what you own. It's more about being one with the planet. So just as nature would have things cascade, whether it's these big tulips and the stems from the tulips. It also comes down into the clothing here will all cascade down. And then it will come into folds here because folds represent like the sea and all that. It's how nature tends to let things lay down is in folds. And then the motifs on the corners, you know, this will be sun, sun, sun. But down here, it's going to be tulips again or lilies or something going around in a circle. And then the flowers here. So that's, you know, this is how I first pencil it, and then that's how I'm going to ink it. Same thing here. We have Francine with the moon. So it's going to be a tremendous amount of stars and flowing stars that are like drapery up there in a night sky, and then the astrological signs, and then more the acknowledgement of ancient patterns for moon and sun worshiping in our ancient history. And then Francine, of course, is wearing the stars for a necklace. They don't mind, they don't pay any attention to gravity, and she's sitting on that chair, the one with the moon globes at the arms. And then her clothing comes cascading down, and it is, you know, has this pattern all over it. This particular page is going to really depend on blacks and whites. What is black, what is white? These will not be colored. One interesting thing about this drawing is I never could find an exactly appropriate place to put the belly button because it always looks a little funny, just sticking out there. I mean, that's where it should be. Here's the body, dun, 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 like that. There's a belly button. But when it's just here in the layout, it just seems like, where did that come from? But I can't not have it, because then that would make her Eve, the first person without a belly button. Okay, another one I have here is, this is Kachu's moon page. And it's very complex with stages of the moon, the big moon right here, and then it's framed in this motif of stars. And these are actually Parker lilies going around in the circles up in here. And then Kachu is, I need to work on this a little bit. She looks like she has too much eye makeup on. So I'm going to, of course, make look exactly like the Kachu we all know and love. But I'm trying to wrap her in some sort of layers here, where she has a shoulder wrap and then loose cloth in here, and then a loose cloth that just drapes down and cascades all the way down to the bottom. And holding these really big, gorgeous flowers. There's a flower stem in here that's going to be in the foreground, and then here is flowers coming around, draping around like that. And then in the bottom, circle motifs I don't know if I'm using that word motif right. I think I am. It'd be looking from the moonscape at the Earth, and from the moonscape out to the space, and look, there's Saturn. So this is what I'm working on, guys, and it's been really difficult to transition from storytelling to, hey, get dreamy. But once you're there, I mean, it took me a week, but once you're there, it is so fun, and it's a really fun style to draw. The thing about it is you don't have to have some gorgeous, perfect person drawing. Do your person drawing, and then just go crazy with the stuff that you might like to draw anyway, in terms of like patterns, designs, earth, nature, limbs, flowers, vines. I mean, and you add it all in there, and you just come up with something that is you can stare at for an hour, trying to see all the little details. And so I just wanted to, if you haven't seen it before, this is Art Nouveau. If you have seen it before, this is my best attempt. And I'm going to ink these guys, and I'll spend the next week inking my brains out and adding detail. And these are going to be, each of these is going to be a print. We're going to have 6 prints in a big art portfolio folder, and we're going to sell that portfolio on our website. And that's what this is all about. That's what this is for. So, as you can tell, they're 11 by 17. They're going to be big. They're not going to be small. They're going to be this size. That's why I have to get the drawing right. And man, I hope you enjoy it, because I'm loving doing it. So in the meantime, go draw a bunch of detail stuff and put vines in it and call it Art Nouveau. Have fun. I'll see you next week. Bye.